So I want to thank everyone for attending. It's really important for all of us on the project team and for the members of the New Hampshire Department of Transportation that are here tonight, that all of you took time out of your busy day to show your interest in the project and come and ask us questions, tell us what you like and tell us what you don't like, because our job is to deliver the best product that we possibly can to the town of Merrimack, the city of Nashua, and the town of Bedford. So just thank all of you very, very much for attending. And so tonight is not your last opportunity to provide any input. This is going to be going on for the next few months. So at the front desk we have a newsletter that has the project website on it, as well as the contact information for the project manager. So if you go home tonight and think of something else, or you're talking about this project with your neighbors or friends, just encourage them to please reach out to us through the project website, because we really do want to continue hearing about what your thoughts are. And everything that you see here tonight is on that project website. Go to the project document page, and they're very high quality PDF documents that you can easily access and download them and even print them out. That website address is everett.turnpikewidening.com. So we have a presentation that'll last just about a half an hour. It's going to be a real broad overview to just give you a sense of all the different important aspects of the project. And then we're going to open it up to questions. And I have a microphone that I am going to walk around with, because we want everyone in the audience to hear what your question is, and then certainly we'll be answering your questions with the microphone as well. The other thing is that this is being recorded by Merrimack Television, which is wonderful. In a few days, the presentation will be available. If you go to the Merrimack Television website, it'll be on YouTube. So again, tell your friends and neighbors, if they were unable to be here tonight, to watch the presentation. And hopefully they'll have a lot of their questions answered through that. So I just want to introduce to you the people that are here tonight that are part of the project team. And I'm going to ask them to just raise their hand. And the reason we're doing this is that all of us are going to stay as long as it takes tonight. After this presentation, that will be short, any questions you have, we're going to stay, and we're going to talk about whatever questions you have and make sure that you have your concerns addressed. So from the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, excuse me, the Assistant Commissioner, Bill Cass, is here. Also, the Director of Project Development, Peter Stamnus. The overall project manager for this is Wendy Johnson. Wendy's also one of the presenters. Then from the Bureau of Highway Design, we have Dan Primo. There's Dan over there in the back. John Hebert. From the Bureau of Environment, we have John Evans. And John is here specifically to address any questions you have about noise. From the two consulting companies that are assisting the department in this project, from CHA, we have Bill Ashford. Bill is one of the presenters, and John Pirelli. And then from the second company, McFarland Johnson, Michael Long. Jed Murrow, the third and final presenter. My name is Jennifer Zorn. I also work for McFarland Johnson. And then we have Jordan Tate, who's been greeting all of you at the front door. So we're going to kick this off with Bill Ashford, and then Jed Murrow will talk about some of the environmental issues, and Wendy Johnson, the project manager, will wrap it up. So thank you again for attending. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. We're going to, as Jen said, run through our presentation. We have a lot of you have been walked through the plan, so I have a good idea of what's going to be happening, but the presentation does cover some of this. So in general, we're going to talk about the need for the project, the project segments that are where the work is going to be happening, the environmental study that's going on, the key public outreach efforts, the overall cost projection for the project, the process and schedule for the construction of the project, and then opening it up to comments and questions at the end. So basically, the project is broken into 3 segments, and these segments are going to be widened from an existing 2 lanes to 3 lanes in each direction. There are 5 bridges along the corridor that need to be improved to accommodate this widening. There are no modifications to tolls as part of this project, nor are there any improvements to the existing exits as part of this project. The idea here is that we're going to improve capacity of the roadway, and we're going to be improving the safety of the roadway. So overall, the project is 12 miles long and starts from just north of exit 8 in Nashua and ends at the 293-101 interchange in Bedford. Of that 12 miles section, there already are 2 sections which are improved to that 3-lane section. That would be from exit 10 to 11 and in the exit 13 area. So the goal of the project is to improve the mobility throughout the corridor. The Everett Turnpike in this area, or for the whole state, is a major north-south corridor for daily commuting, for weekend travelers, and for just the goods and services that pass up and down. There are currently areas where this is the level of service is not adequate to address the amount of traffic that is on there. So we're going to help to relieve the congestion, and we're going to improve safety. Let's see if I can use this. There we go. Along the corridor. So the idea here is in these certain sections, we're going to improve the roadway by going from 2 lanes in each direction to 3 lanes in each direction. Here, as you can see on the slide at the top part, is the existing condition. Between the both northbound and southbound barrel, there's a grass median with a metal beam rail. The proposed section will add a lane in each direction to the outside of the highway, so only 12 feet added on each side. But in the median, we're going to be paving the median and putting concrete barrier. This provides a tremendous safety improvement throughout the corridor. It gives an area for disabled vehicles to get out of traffic without having to pull into a grass median. So that's a safety improvement. In addition, obviously the added lane is going to help the flow of traffic. I'm sorry, I want to back up one slide. Okay. So we're talking about the flow, improving the flow of traffic. Currently, at a number of locations throughout the corridor, the traffic functions at what we would call a level of service D. Now, a level of service is just a qualitative measure of how free-flowing the traffic is. And the ratings for level of service can range from an A to an F. So at a couple locations, we're actually at an F, but many of the locations are at a level of service D now. Now, when we started looking at this project, we did a traffic study, and we look at the traffic projections. We look at the current conditions, we look at the conditions at the start of construction, and then we look 20 years out as to what the traffic volumes were going to be. So what we want to do is try to solve this problem for at least 20 years. So again, we're at a level of service D. With the improvements, we are going to get much better flow of traffic. Our first segment that we're going to be improving starts in Nashua, just north of exit 8, and runs to just south of exit 10 in Merrimack. This is approximately 1.7 miles long, and there's one major bridge over the Pennachuck Brook. We're going to take a look at that one. So this is the bridge over the Pennachuck Brook. This area is the drinking water supply for the city of Nashua. So obviously a very sensitive area that we want to do everything we can to not have any impacts on this area during construction. So this is a view of looking down the highway, same bridge that we just saw on the other slide. On this as this is constructed, there's a commitment to keep 2 lanes of traffic open in each direction, and that commitment applies to the entire corridor of construction. So, but for this bridge in particular, there will be the need to shift traffic back and forth. But the key goal here is to minimize the environmental impacts, because if it's a drinking water supply in a very sensitive area. So all of the construction in this area would be done to the east side of the highway, which is, as you're looking at this, it would be at your right, the right side. So all the widening will be to the right. In addition, another measure that's being taken to minimize the environmental impacts during construction is that the bridge that is going to replace the 2 existing bridges will be a longer span. So the abutments or the bearings for the bridge can be built behind the existing bridges. So not in the water, but in the land behind the existing bridges. So traffic will be shifted over. Portion of the new bridge will be built to the east side. Traffic will be then shifted on that, and then the remaining part of the bridge can be constructed. The exact phasing still needs to be worked out, but again, the commitment is to keep 2 lanes in each direction open at all times. So the next section is the middle segment, which is about 5.1 miles long. This starts at exit 11 and runs to just south of the exit 13, which is the Bedford, in Bedford, the new airport access road. Sorry, that's still in Merrimack, the new airport access road. So this section, 5.1 miles, all within Merrimack. A couple of the key bridges here are Wire and Babusick Lake Road, and then the Babusick Brook Bridge. All right. This section, again stated, starts at exit 11 over Greeley Street. This bridge is already wide enough to accommodate the 3 lanes in each section, so there's very minor work on this, some guardrail, bridge guardrail improvements, but in essence, just maintenance type work on this bridge, no really reconstruction of this bridge. For Babusick Lake Road, which is right outside the high school here, this is a red list bridge. So this bridge is going to be replaced, take that with a new bridge. It also needs to be replaced to accommodate the new 3-lane section under that roadway. Here you see a kind of a close-up of what's out there for the plans. The bright yellow is Babusick Lake Road and the F.E. Everett Turnpike underneath of it. The greenish area is the extent of the construction, basically the slope impacts. As the roadway is raised and widened a little bit, there are impacts that come off to the side, and that's what is shown in the green area. All right. What will happen here is that this bridge will be replaced on its existing alignment. That will be done by constructing a new or a temporary bridge, most likely to the south of the existing bridge. Traffic will be diverted onto that bridge. The old bridge can then be torn down and a new one constructed. The commitment here is to keep 2 lanes or 1 lane in each direction open for Babusick Lake Road at all times. The only exception would be minor construction activity, but never during rush hour, peak hour traffic that would impact the schools. One of the other commitments that's being made here is that there's an existing sidewalk on the southern half of this bridge. That sidewalk will be maintained, but a sidewalk will also be added to the northern side of this bridge. Again, because of this proximity to not only the high school, but the other few schools right in this area, there is a lot of pedestrian traffic. So to accommodate that traffic, sidewalks will be placed on both sides of this bridge. Our next bridge is just a little further up the Turnpike, and that would be Wire Road. Wire Road has about half the amount of traffic that Babusick Lake Road does, but again, it needs to be replaced because it needs to be widened underneath to allow for the new 3-lane section of the highway. All right. So Wire Road is going to be constructed using alternating one-way traffic, which means traffic will be narrowed down to 1 lane. Temporary stoplights will be placed at either end of the bridge, and then traffic will flow one direction, the lights will change, then the traffic will flow the other direction. And this decision was made based on the lower traffic volumes on Wire Road, and that could be accommodated using this type of approach. So doing this, the bridge itself, the existing bridge, will basically be cut in half longitudinally down the length of the bridge. The northern half of the bridge will be demolished, and a new bridge will be constructed, and then traffic, when all construction is done, traffic will be placed on that new bridge. This approach was done because there are some very tight environmental restrictions in the northeast corner of the bridge. Babusick Brook flows pretty close to this bridge, so we couldn't just build a new bridge and shift it all the way to the north, because that would have impacted Babusick Brook. The next bridge is actually over the F.E. Everett Turnpike over Babusick Brook, and this is just a little short distance north of Wire Road. This structure is currently not adequate for the hydraulic flow that will be coming through there. Basically, at this point in the roadway, the 100-year flood is predicted to overtop the F.E. Everett Turnpike. So the roadway in this area is actually going to be raised approximately 3 feet. And this bridge, which kind of looks like a culvert, but is technically a bridge, will be replaced with a longer span bridge to allow a proper hydraulics or proper addressing the flooding issues in this area. The other bridge that's in this segment, which is actually just south of the high school here, that actually a few people have asked about tonight, is the Merrill's Marauder Bridge, which is over the Sauhegan River. This bridge was previously reconstructed about 5 years ago. So this bridge is already wide enough to accommodate 3 lanes of the highway over this bridge. So there really is no work on this bridge, with the exception of restriping the road and maybe repaving over the bridge. So really no structural work on this bridge. So our last segment is the northern segment. This is approximately 1.3 miles long, starts just north of the airport access road and goes through the 293 interchange. There are no bridges to be constructed on this section of roadway. There are a couple bridges here that we just want to point out, so it's clear that we're not going to be working on them. There's the new bridge, which is the Route 3 over the F.E. Everett Turnpike. So this is the bridge right by Lowe's in Bedford. So that bridge is pretty new. It was built to accommodate a wider F.E. Everett Turnpike underneath. So there's no work on that bridge at all. The last bridge is actually the 293 over the F.E. Everett Turnpike, and that is built wide enough to accommodate the 3 lanes through this.
What about the one that's at exit 12, Bedford Road?
Bedford Road is already wide enough to accommodate the 3 lanes underneath it. So here again we have the plan view of the terminus of the northern section. And what we want to show here really is that we're carrying the 3-lane section, 3 lanes in each way, through this interchange. And we're tying into the existing ramps. We're not rebuilding these ramps, the ramps to 293, but we're tying into what's there, but carrying that 3rd lane through there to hopefully accommodate and facilitate the flow of traffic underneath there, and all the weaving and merging that goes on with the traffic coming off of 293 or 101 onto the F.E. Everett Turnpike to the north. So, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jed to talk about the environmental issues.
Thank you, Bill. So we're looking at all the environmental impacts of the project and documenting it in an environmental study. Through the process, we are coordinating closely with the regulatory agencies, also with towns and cities, regional planning agencies, meeting with the select boards, giving opportunities for public input, and we welcome the public input we've had so far and hope it continues. The first step in the process is to inventory the resources that are along the Turnpike. And I'll skip ahead, just give you an idea. There's quite a broad range of resources that we look at. We look at wetlands, waterways, water quality, floodplains, rare species, noise, of course, historical and archaeological resources, and many other resources as well. We then look at the footprint of the project and determine what the impacts will be to those resources. The wetland footprint, what we're doing, how we're dealing with the waterways, the culverts and bridges, the noise impacts, and so forth. I'll talk more about some of these resources in a moment. All of this information will be documented in an environmental study, which will be published sometime this summer. It'll be made public. We'll put it on the website and welcome any comments that folks have on it. Any comments that are received will be reviewed and considered. And finally, this phase of the project will culminate in a public hearing when we'll take additional comments. So a few resources that are of particular interest to folks, wetlands and waterways, approximately 2 acres of impact overall to wetlands, streams, and rivers. The biggest single impact, about a half an acre, is at Pennachuck Brook. And at this location, there really was no way to avoid impacting the water body without substantial cost. And a compromise was struck. We're leaving the west shore of the causeways at Pennachuck Brook intact, and we're widening to the east and doing phased construction so that we can just widen on one side and minimize impacts to that water body. There's several vernal pools along the corridor. Those are important amphibian habitat areas. There will be very small impacts to a few vernal pools. We're still looking at those impacts. Small portions of wetlands, fringes of wetlands along the corridor would be affected as well. Bill mentioned Babusick Brook. We'll be building a new bridge that will accommodate more stream flow and do a better job of accommodating fish and wildlife passage underneath the bridge. Natticook Brook, a small stream in Merrimack that has some rare fish species. We'll be putting in a larger culvert underneath the highway at that location as well. Water quality, the water quality regulations are fairly stringent these days. They require us to treat as much as possible of the runoff from both the existing and the proposed pavement. We're proposing approximately 20 extended detention basins to treat runoff from the highway. We think that the treatment in the end will result in better water quality in runoff and receiving waters than there is currently, because so much of the Turnpike currently drains off untreated. There will be a couple of conservation lands affected. The Dumpling Brook Wildlife Management Area, we're proposing to impact about 2/3 of an acre to construct one of the detention basins. There's also a recently designated conservation area. We're investigating who holds that conservation easement at the Mini Cooper lot up in Bedford. And finally, noise. I know there's a great deal of interest in noise tonight. We looked at the entire corridor for noise impacts from exit 8 in Nashua all the way up to the 293 interchange in Bedford, including the areas that were previously widened. We're employing the traffic noise model to determine impacts. That's a model developed by the Federal Highway Administration and is the standard model for determining noise impacts throughout the country. The first step in that process is verifying that the model is giving you accurate results. So to do that, we go out to individual neighborhoods, and we identified 24 different neighborhoods along the Turnpike. And we go out to each neighborhood, go to a location that's close to the highway and that's accessible, measure the noise levels on the ground, and simultaneously count traffic volumes. We put the traffic volumes and the geometry of the site into the traffic noise model and determine what the model tells us the noise is. We compare that to the measured noise levels, and if they're about the same, then we know the noise model is giving us accurate results. The model is validated. And in all cases, we did get results close to the measured results, and the model did prove to be accurate. We then look at noise impacts at residences in all the neighborhoods along the highway. As I mentioned, 24 neighborhoods, over 300 residences in all were individually modeled for noise impacts. Wherever there's an impact, we do a noise abatement analysis. We looked at the effectiveness of noise barriers to reduce noise levels in the future. And if the noise levels are reduced by enough, if they meet the model, the department's noise policy criteria, enough to warrant a noise barrier, then a noise barrier can be proposed. Currently, we have 6 noise barriers that are warranted along the corridor. All of those are in Merrimack. We've discussed most of those with you tonight. There's a 7th that is under study that may prove to be warranted. We're still looking at that. It's close. And we're certainly willing to entertain questions about other areas. We've received some very useful comments. For example, information on a residence that was constructed just recently. Since we did our field work we weren't aware of. It was very helpful. So we're open to any questions, comments folks may have about the noise study. Historic resources, I'll mention just briefly. We look at resources that are either on or eligible for the National Register of Historic Places and what impacts the project might have on them. There is an opportunity for individuals and organizations who have an interest in historic resources to become consulting parties. It's a formal designation for the project, and please let us know after the meeting if you are interested in becoming a consulting party, and we'll get that process started. And with that, I'll turn it over to Project Manager Wendy Johnson, who will tell you about the outreach plan.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you. First, public outreach efforts. I'd really like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I can't tell you how much great input that we've received from everybody just tonight, and some of the great comments. So do keep them coming. You will see at the back of the room we do have a comment box, so it can be an anonymous comment. Just let us know what you're thinking, like Jed was indicating. We're finding out a lot of information just from talking to you guys. So what is the public outreach effort really consisting of? The first thing is a public officials meeting. So that's what we're doing right now. We've actually come out one other time previously, and this is our second round of public officials meetings. We get a lot of information from those first meetings that we tried to incorporate into the design that you see on the wall today. The next thing that we're doing is consultation with our stakeholders, and stakeholders are everybody who's on the corridor that's got some sort of stake in the project. So we've been communicating with Pennachuck Waterworks, Manchester Boston Regional Airport, New Hampshire Transit Authority. We're trying to get input from everybody, and we actually have a communications plan which we communicate all of our information. We invite them to all the meetings so they're aware of what's going on. We also seek input for how we should be constructing the design. They give invaluable input to the Pennachuck Brook project. Town of Merrimack's actually given great input with regards to sidewalks. So it's been very, very positive experience. The other thing that we're doing is the newsletter. You all got a copy of the newsletter today. That's also published on our website, which I'll show you the website address at the very end of the presentation. The other thing that we're doing is the agency consultation meetings. So Jed sort of hit on it a little bit. We meet with all the different agencies to discuss the project. We meet with the Natural Resource Agency meeting, with cultural resources. We meet with all these agencies to make sure we're not impacting anything, because our goal is to avoid, minimize, or mitigate any sort of impact that we have environmentally. So we've been doing a pretty good job of fulfilling all those needs, and we're pretty much wrapped up with that component of our design. The next thing that we have is we have the public comment period on the environmental study. As Jed was saying, we're working towards completing that environmental study Once that is complete, we'll post it to the website and we'll be seeking comments for at least 30 days, and that'll be prior to the public hearing, which gets us to the next one, which is public hearing. So basically in design, we're in preliminary design. We do all of the design all the way up to a point and we seek input all the way through. Then it sort of culminates in a public hearing process where we come out one last time, we show you what we've incorporated for all the comments that we've got, some tonight, some from other public informational meetings that we've had. We take all those comments together, we hold the public hearing. And that'll be likely held in the same room with all the towns that are involved. So Nashua, Merrimack, and Bedford in this area. So we'll do that public hearing, and then that will culminate the preliminary design phase. And then from there, we'll move on to the final design phase. But before I get to that, you guys always care about what the cost is, and I don't believe in hiding what the cost is. So this is the big ticket price. We have engineering, right-of-way, construction, and the grand total cost. So engineering, what does that mean? Engineering is any of the design work, any of our time to get through any part of the design. That's preliminary, final. It's anything to investigate who owns which piece of property. That's all engineering. The right-of-way component, and that was $13 million, by the way. The right-of-way component is $6.8 million. The right-of-way component is any work that we do if we're going to be acquiring any properties. That's any appraisal work, it's any work to actually compensate the owner for their property. We're estimating that, like I said, to be $6.8 million. The construction cost is about $114 million, and that's for all the work that you see on the plans today. And all of the money, this $133.8 million, is from the Turnpike Capital Program. So it's there's no federal money and no municipal funds involved in this project. There could possibly be municipal funds involved in the contract if, let's say that there was something that needed to be replaced that was a utility that the town wanted to replace. Let's say they wanted to upgrade a water line or upgrade a sewer line. That would be something that would be a town expense. But as of right now, we don't have any of those included in the total cost of the project.
As far as the construction phase, is it the contractors you hired, is it to one company or is it multiple different companies, like 93 Park?
Excellent question. So the project could go in a number of different ways. So when we do projects at the department, how we do it is we have we actually have three different types of projects that we could do. We could do something called the design, bid, build. So what that is that's a regular standard project that you would see. We design it, we put it out to bid, anybody gets to bid on it. So it would go to any of the, you'd come in and you'd purchase plans and you'd bid on the project, whoever the contractor was. It's not like we're aiming it to be contractor A or contractor B. The second way is a design build contract, where we would put out and we'd say, these are our general criteria. We need you to come up with a design firm and a construction firm, get us something, and we need it on the road by such and such a date. And then the last one is a CMGC, which is a construction general management contract, where a designer and a construction firm team up and they do the whole design, and if they're the successful bidder on the contract, they come up with an agreeable bid, then they get the contract. Right now we're looking to do this as a design bid build contract, where we would be putting it out to advertise. Does that answer your question? Very good. So the process and schedule, like I said, we're in the preliminary design stage of our process. The environmental study will be published this summer. Again, that's part of that preliminary stage. We'll have the public hearing in 2018. And what I said before was it sort of ends the preliminary design stage. So what happens then is we bring it to a commission, they vote on the necessity, finding a necessity for the project, and if they find the necessity for the project, that allows us to move forward with final design. Final design is any aspect of the project which involves public meetings, it involves work with municipalities, it involves right-of-way, agency permitting, and then projects are awarded and bid, and that's just what I was mentioning. We'll award and bid the contract. So final design could likely occur from 2018 to 2020. Now remember what I was saying, we've got all these different steps that we need to go, and if there's any hiccups in any of these steps, the schedule could get delayed. So this is sort of our tentative, what we're looking at right now and what we're aiming for. Those public meetings, those are the ones we're at right now, and they're going to continue as design progresses, so we'll hit those in final design. The work with municipalities that will occur during the final design stage are going to be work with utilities. So if the town has utilities that need to be relocated, we'll enter into an agreements, we'll get contracts going for them and include some of their work within our plans if they deem it necessary. We'll also work on agreements with the town, such as the municipal work zone agreements, which talks about traffic control in the town. We'll also work with such stuff as sidewalk agreements and other municipal agreements. The right-of-way process, that's always sort of a touchy process. We're very fortunate on this project. We have a very wide right-of-way, so a lot of the work is going to be handled within that right-of-way. We do, however, have some impacts to properties. And so they're shown on the plans. So if you have a question about your property, please catch one of us and we'll walk you through where your property is and if there is or is not a right-of-way impact to that property. But if your property is impacted, basically what happens is we identify the fact that there's an impact, we appraise the property, and we have communications from there, including, you know, fair market value, and we talk and we negotiate over the cost of what the impacts are. The agency permitting, that's just what Jed was saying. We've got wetlands permits that we need to do, and we've got to make sure we get the project permitted. If we have any delays in permitting, that can also delay when we start construction. So we're hoping that construction can start in 2022. That's our goal right now. And once construction starts, as you had asked, how is this going to work? We haven't quite decided exactly how we're going to break it up, whether it's going to be one contract or 5 contracts. As you could see from the prices earlier, it's $114 million worth of construction work. That's a lot of work to put under one contract. So we could likely do the project under one major contract. We could break it up into individual chunks by town. We could break out the bridges first. Basically, once we get into the final design, we'll make those decisions based on where we can get the permitting from, where we've got information, and where we can start the projects first, because the goal is to get something on the ground quickly and to you as soon as we can, because we've heard from you tonight that traffic and congestion are a problem. So with that, again, I'd like to thank you for coming tonight. I really appreciate all your time. It's really important to us. Any questions and comments, please feel free to visit everett-turnpike-widening.com. Our contact information is there, and we're here to listen. So.